from the time I ever went there, I am over and over and over again like shocked and dismayed and anguished at how much worse it is than what I thought.
Hi there. I'd love it if you could introduce yourself for me.
Sure, so I'm Rabbi David Mivasair.
Great. And you're here today as Sarah Jama announces her continued independence. What brought you out here today? Why was it important for you to be here?
Yeah, so ever since I met Sarah about 5 years ago, I've been a tremendous supporter of hers when she was kind of a leading activist here in our city. She's made so many good things happen, mobilized so many people, gotten people together to do so much. And I was involved with her campaign to get elected. And then she asked me to be on the executive committee of the Riding Association with the Ontario NDP. So if Sarah asked me, it's like, okay, I'll do that. I'll also say, because I am a rabbi and I've lived in Israel and I'm very involved with what's going on there and very active in supporting solidarity for Palestinians, and I knew Sarah's going to get in trouble. I thought if I join her executive of her riding association, I can be a voice on the inside standing up for her with like my background, with my voice, who I am. And that's exactly what happened, you know. So anyway, yeah, that's it. I can say more if you want.
You can talk as much
Okay,
as you want.
so of course I would come here just to support her. I'm excited that she's here, but also I made the decision to stay on the ONDP Riding Association executive when others left. I think it's important that not all of us leave, and I do often kind of keep a place at the table and keep myself in a position where I can be kind of on the inside, and if you understand what I mean, and that's what I did. So I'm currently on the ONDP Riding Association exec, while Sarah and hundreds of other people in our riding are setting up an independent riding association, which they need that, we need that, but just the role that I've assigned myself to is staying with the NDP.
Thank you. And you were telling me earlier about that you've been to the West Bank, you've been arrested in the West Bank. Could you tell me a little more about how or why or if your perspective changed over time and how that process happened?
So my perspective on what's going on in Palestine has changed so much. You know, I'm 71 years old. I first got involved with Israel and Palestine in the late 1960s, more than 50 years ago. I first went to live there in 1971 when I was 19 years old. And at the time, I would say, I don't think I've ever been naive. I don't think I ever thought this is like everything's okay. It's not like the Jewish Disneyland. You know, I always knew that there's oppression. I always knew that Israel was like literally stealing land from Palestinians, kicking them out of their homes, really mistreating them. I always knew that, but from the time I ever went there, I am over and over and over again like shocked and dismayed and anguished at how much worse it is than what I thought. So you just asked me how my views changed. And over all these decades, I just see it as getting worse and worse. And the most recent time that I was there, I went in May 2019 with a group of about 120 North American Jews through an organization called the Center for Jewish Nonviolence that organizes Jews from around the world to go to Palestine and join in right on the ground, literally arm in arm, what we call co-resistance, not coexistence, but co-resistance. And I would say actually using ourselves as like human shields to reduce the violence against them, at least while we're there. And one of the changes for me at that time was thinking like all the political work, all the organizing, everything we've been doing for years and years and years, you see virtually no outcomes, hardly any change, maybe no change at all of everything we've been doing. But being there on the ground, actually helping, makes a difference. And I saw people that needed like $50 so that they could feed their children and buy clothes. These are people who are, I can say they're Palestinians whose families have lived there for centuries. You know, clearly it's their land, it's where they belong. Israel has denied them paved roads, water, electricity, schools, health care. They have none of that. They don't have freedom of movement, right? So for them to even like have any kind of a job to be able to feed their children, they just don't, like in their own land. So I actually like gave somebody $50 and it made so much difference to them. And it shifted my perspective. So for the last 4 years, I've been doing my own little bits of fundraising and sending money to people in Gaza who are far more deprived and far more restricted in what they can do than the people in the West Bank. So I've been helping families in Gaza, and I also got other people to help. So there's maybe now a couple dozen people who each send some money every month. And I've been sending that to half a dozen or so families in Gaza to very concretely, tangibly help them maintain themselves. Some of these, when I say families, it's like single mothers whose husbands were killed and they still have 6 children. So there's a woman like that I've been helping for a couple years. So that you said, what kind of changes? So that's a change for me. While I'm doing the big political work, that has to be done, and maybe one day it'll tip the balance and things will get better, I also realize that it's very important in the moment, to try to help people in concrete ways. And I'll just add, I know I'm talking a long time, but I'll tell you, I really want to tell you what is in my mind that inspires me and makes me do this is so many stories of Jews during the Holocaust getting herded into ghettos and concentration camps. And I'll just say, like some Polish housewife walking by and just taking a loaf of bread and heaving it over the wall, or somebody like has some potatoes and like gets it in so these people could eat for like one more day. I know people did that. I saw a film in Toronto about 2 or 3 years ago called Rhapsody that was made about a survivor of the Holocaust who came to Toronto, built a new life for himself, got married, had children, had a house, and all this kind of stuff. But this film was about what happened to him during the Holocaust. And he lived in a town in Poland. He was a young man. Happened to be that he was a musician. It's not important. A lot of his family was taken away, and there was somebody he didn't even know, just like a Polish guy, who had rented an apartment, who said to him, go in this apartment. Just go in there. So he went in, and this Polish man, he didn't even know. Actually, there were 4 Jewish people in that apartment. And this man brought them food, brought them water. There was supposed to be no one in the apartment. It was supposed to be a vacant apartment. They could never run water. They could never turn on a light. They could never flush the toilet. But this man came and brought them food and actually carried out their poop. And in the beginning, you think, okay, I'll do this for like 2 or 3 days. And then, oh my God, no, I have to do this like more. I'll do this for a month. This went on for 3 years until the Russian army finally liberated them. So this man came over and over and over and over and over and sustained their lives. And as a Jew, I hear so many stories like that about how people survived the Holocaust, even if like their whole family was wiped out. They survived. And then they went on. And then they got married. Then they had children or whatever happened, But somebody helped them. And I just feel for myself, somebody in Gaza is saying to me, can you help me? I can't feed my children. And I'm like, how can I not? So that is a big change in my views in the last few years, the last little while.
We were talking earlier about the shift in perspectives over time. For you, it was based on your own experiences, but now, over the past few years, a lot of young people, a lot of Jewish people have started to change their own perspectives too. As a member of Independent Jewish Voices, how have you seen that reflected in IJV?
Oh, so IJV, Independent Jewish Voices, Canada, has grown in members. Over this last month, we've about 200 Jews in Canada have contacted us to join. And we're also really...
Sorry, is that a significant number overall?
Yeah, so actually the number of members about a month ago was about 1,000. All across Canada, we have chapters from Halifax to Victoria, and also here in Hamilton and Toronto. So there were about 1,000 members. 200 people have joined in the last month. On one hand, I'm really glad that people are joining and the organization is growing and there'll be more independent Jewish voices being heard. That's very good, but actually the reason that's happening is because things are so blatantly horrible. There's such an immediate crisis that is motivating people to join. So in a paradoxical way, I wish that weren't true. I wish our organization shrank because there was no need for it anymore. But to answer your question, so there's more people involved. We are being approached by media such as you. We are being seen by other groups as allies. Palestinian groups, I think, kind of stood off from us before, and now I think there's more of an understanding that we're really all in this together. And just another thing you're asking, I'll tell you. So we had a lot of internal discussions about whether we should declare that we're an anti-Zionist organization. Some of us feel very strongly that we should say that. I'm one of those. Others of us feel that doesn't really lead toward building relationships with the people we most need to communicate with. If we say we're anti-Zionist, that'll alienate other Jewish people and kind of cut us off from them. Some of us feel like we're not anti-Zionist, or that person's not anti-Zionist. They're against certain things Israel's doing, or they're for equality and justice and freedom, but they're not anti-Zionist. So one of the things within Independent Jewish Voices is that's come up again, and we're still discussing it.
Right. And I guess because it's supposed to be an emphasis on the independence of Jewish Voices, I assume that there are a lot of people who feel that by taking the official anti-Zionist stance, it's maybe infringing on the independence mandate.
I don't think that's it. I think that would be very independent. I don't think anybody thinks that, because there's no Jewish organization in Canada that says it's anti-Zionist. In the U.S., there is. I'm a member, as an American, I'm a member of a large organization called Jewish Voice for Peace that went through a similar discussion, and about 5 years ago did say we're an anti-Zionist organization. So there's no issue around independence. It's really just what I said. It's a question of political efficacy, like who's our audience, who are we trying to reach? And I would say, I don't know how much you want me to talk, but
as much or as little as
part of what we need to do as Independent Jewish Voices is be a Palestine solidarity organization. We are Jewish people who are acting together to support Palestine and Palestinians. And with that perspective, anti-Zionist makes very good sense. Another thing we need to do is, as much as we can, work within the Jewish community, among Jews, to speak with each other as Jews, kind of help other Jews find their way to join politically with what we're doing. So if we just immediately say, oh, we're anti-Zionist, that shuts down communications. And I think that's a very good argument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's okay. But just where do you come out on that? It's a binary decision. Either you do or you don't.
Yeah.
So far, we've not said that, and we're not in agreement about that.